Hi, and welcome back here on the Senior Network. We're joined with Emily Getz, Benchmark Physical Therapy. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
And Neil Honeycutt of Right at Home, Director of Community Relations. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we were talking earlier about falls, and I know in our business and home care and yours, we deal a lot with falls. So tell us a little bit about your stats and what you were talking.
Yeah, so, you know, there's doing some research on just how prevalent falls are, and every 11 seconds there's an admission to the emergency department because of a fall in the elderly, and every 19 minutes there's a fatality because of an injury related to a fall.
Oh my goodness.
So some pretty staggering statistics there with falls in general. It's 1 in every 3 persons over the age of 65 is at risk for falling every year, and unfortunately, if you've had one fall, you've got a 66% chance of falling again later that year. So.
Yeah, and the sad part of that, and we know from our business, is that's when we start a lot of care after there's a fall and there's a fracture.
Right.
Because you can't get around and do anything. Your activities of daily living are pretty much gone at that point.
Absolutely. And then you have to look at the other things that come along with it. You know, the loss of independence that can lead to depression and then further weakness because of that. You know, unfortunately with the opioid epidemic, you know, you've had a fall, you've got a lot of pain, kind of lead down that road as well. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about physical therapy. Are there things that you can do to be proactive?
Absolutely. So some of the risk factors for falls in general are just decreased strength, decreased range of motion, decreased endurance and balance, any kind of gait deviations. You know, maybe you're not picking your feet up enough when you're walking, and those are all things that are easily addressed in physical therapy.
Right. And Neil, I know we were talking about falls, obviously. That is very prevalent, and when you go out and do admissions and so forth, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, Greg. In our business, we get a lot of I would say our referrals from folks like physical therapy agencies, home health care, where someone has fallen. You see the commercials, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Right. Yeah.
and you know, we all sort of laugh about that commercial, but there's so many of them, just like her statistics were telling us. And when we get involved with those folks, you know, a lot of times it's about you know, obviously balance issues, it's medication issues. Sometimes it's about finding the cause of it. And for our caregivers, what we're trying to do is come in and support people like Benchmark, what they're doing in the short time that they're able to work with people. We come in on the hours that they're not in their physical therapy, or they're not with, say, a Benchmark or a home health company, trying to make sure that they're you know, physically getting baths.
More of a passive.
That's right. And doing everything that they want to do on a daily basis, but doing it safely.
Sure. And when you're in the homes, I know that, you know, there's a process, obviously, and we talked about on an earlier show about, I know when you meet with folks and do your evaluations, and I know in home care, there's a long in-home evaluation before we start that process. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, once we sit down with a client, and typically the client and a family member or several family members, and we're talking about you know, their schedule. Number one, we go in and we look at, you know, what time they're getting up, what time they're taking their medications, meal times, transportation comes into play as well. We want to make sure they're getting back and forth to their physician appointments, but that assessment really is looking at their level of functioning, both physically and mentally.
Right.
And because both of those play a part in obviously getting back to the falls. Physically, we work with people that can be bedbound, to people that are just having a little bit of extra, needing a little extra care. Using a walker, they just need someone to come alongside them and ensure that we're putting everything in place that we can, whether it's medical equipment, whether it's having a caregiver a certain number of hours per day. So that assessment is really important to know what we need to do to develop a plan of care, and getting other folks involved if necessary, other referral sources, other resources in the community for those folks.
Great. Well, hold that thought. We are going to need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.